I just step back a bit to see what they have managing like a bigger refurbishment project. It's useful to use it as living I've never done. I mean,
in Durham County, I'm sorry for to say that hunger and starvation is increasing every day. For the want of food and coals, we know not what to do. But with your kind assistance, we will stand the struggle through. I need not state the reasons why we have been brought so low. The masters have behaved unkind, which everyone will know. Because we won't lie down and let them treat us as they like. To punish us, they stop the pits and cause the present strike. With tyranny and capital, they never seem content, unless they are endeavouring to take from us percent. If it were true what they request, we willingly would grant. We know it's not, therefore we cannot give them what they want.
Welcome, fellow travellers. My name is Sarah Jean-Pierre, and I have travelled all the way from Peckham, South East London, to incite you with this mobile incitement unit where we had our tea party. We've just been grabbing, we've got text, we've had everything today. We've had placard making, we've had hands that are going to be read out later on of people that have been part of protests, so you get to hear a bit of that later. But this year, I decided to change up the rally a little bit, and I brought a band with me. Yeah, this is the Black Smock Band, London's premier gay punk band.
As far as we know.
So here's the thing. These songs that you are going to hear, they are old, but they tell stories. They tell stories that aren't necessarily written in textbooks. These songs are a living, breathing history. And a living, breathing historical figure is in the room with us this afternoon, all the way from the 17th century. So can you please join me in welcoming Jared Winstanley.
Truly it is an honour to see so many of you gathered here today. Hello, I definitely didn't see you earlier at the tea party, completely different person. Hello, nice to meet you.
Well, I thought it'd be interesting to bring Mr. Winstanley today, because as you can tell, we are complete polar opposites. And on top of that, I feel that with Jared Winstanley being here, I like to delve into the history that we have. And who better than someone from beyond the grave telling us what happened all those years ago. So please do listen to Mr. Jared Winstanley, and everything that I know, I found interest in what you tell us about, not only our current struggles, but how we got here. So please.
So for those of you unschooled in my identity, don't worry, it's okay if you don't know who I am. I was born in Wigan in 1603, known for my righteous leadership of a group called the Diggers. Well, other people started calling us the Diggers, but we called ourselves the True Levellers. Emphasis on true, as while the Levellers sought for political reform and religious freedom, we called for an entire restructuring of the established social order through ideas of equality and common ownership of land. I've got this mobile incitement unit with me. It's full of books, pamphlets, articles, songs, a microphone, tea. It's even got tea. I've heard that's very important in your day and age. But I've been collecting all of this stuff to try and find out what's happened between my lifetime and yours. To try and figure out who has fought for change and find out what there is left to fight for. So if history is a story that tells us how we got here, then history is also a story that tells us who we are. So maybe the wren is Richard II, and maybe this is a song from the Peasants' Revolt.
Oh, where are you going, said Melda to Melda. Oh, we may not tell you, said Thistle to foes. We'll go to the woods, said John the Red-Nosed. We're going to the woods, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, what will you do there, said Melda to Melda. Oh, we may not tell you, said Thistle to foes. We'll shoot the cutty wren, said John the Red-Nosed. We'll shoot the cutty wren, said John the Red-Nosed.
A short and parcel history of radical resistance, part 1.
John Ball was a seditious, wandering priest. He roamed about the land, not fixed to any parish, preaching his radical creed of equality. In 1366, the law forbade anyone to listen to any sermon he made. In 1381, the peasants rose up against the royal hand that kept them low. And so they freed John Ball from the prison he had been thrown in. And these are some of the words he said.
When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? From the beginning, all men by nature were created alike, and our bondage or servitude came in by the unjust oppression of naughty men.
Oh, how will you shoot her, said Melda to Melda. Oh, we may not tell you, said Thistle to foes. With bows and with arrows, said John the Red-Nosed. With bows and with arrows, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, that will not do, said Melda to Melda. Oh, what will do then, said Thistle to foes. Big guns and big cannons, said John the Red-Nosed. Big guns and big cannons, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, how will you cook her, said Melda to Melda. Oh, we may not tell you, said Thistle to foes. In pots and in pans, said John the Red-Nosed. In pots and in pans, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, that will not do, said Melda to Melda. Oh, what will do then, said Thistle to foes. Bloody bright brass cauldrons, said John the Red-Nosed. Bloody bright brass cauldrons, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, get the spare ribs, said Melda to Melda. Oh, we may not tell you, said Thistle to foes. We'll give them all to the poor, said John the Red-Nosed. We'll give them all to the poor, said John the Red-Nosed.
So it was just down the road from here in Mile End where the peasants from Essex set up camp. 100,000 men. Where they met the king for the first time. Here. Another glorious failure, of course. See, I wasn't always a radical. In 1630, I moved to London, and I worked in the merchant trade like my father. Business was good, everything was going well. And then in 1642, this land saw the rejection of monarchy, of the divine right of kings, the conflict at the heart of the civil war that tore apart this nation. It was a time of change and fervour. In 1643, I became bankrupt, beaten out of estate and trade and forced to accept the goodwill of friends to live a country life. I became a cowherd in Cobham. Yeah, I know, it's quite funny, really. But life was hard in the war. Especially in the villages, I witnessed such poverty and unrighteousness that I just could not stay quiet. I began to start writing, and I wrote tons of pamphlets. I wrote 4 in 1 year. And then in 1649, I tried to build a new world. There was about 30 or 40 of us, men and women. We set up camp on St George's Hill in Surrey, ploughing the land in common and living communally.
You noble diggers, all stand up now, stand up now. You noble diggers, all stand up now. The wasteland to maintain, King Cavaliers by name, your digging does disdain, and persons all defame. Stand up now, stand up now. Your houses they pull down. Stand up now, stand up now. Your houses they pull down. Stand up now. Your houses they pull down to fright your men in town. But the gentry must come down, and the poor shall wear the crown. Stand up now, stand up now.
This song they're singing, I wrote it. Yeah, I did, many years ago now. I'm long dead now. But when a song is sung, now that is a living, breathing thing. And seeing all of you gathered here, listening to this song, seeing you right here in front of me, takes me right back to 1649, where I would stand and declare my vision to all that would listen. For as the enclosures are called such a man's land and such a man's land, so the commons and heath are called the common peoples. And let the earth see who labours the earth in righteousness, whether they that hold a civil propriety, saying the earth is ours, which is selfish, devilish and destructive to the creation, or those that hold a common right. Okay, look, I know this is quite dense, but honestly, people did love it in 1649. They used to listen to me for hours, honest. But maybe I'll just leave you with my song.
If you would like to, ladies and gentlemen, join in with the Stand Up Now, the lyrics are actually on the back of your programmes. And the last verse, if you want to join in. Go ahead.
With spades and hoes and plows, stand up now, stand up now. With spades and hoes and plows, stand up now. Your freedom to uphold, see Cavaliers are bold, to kill you if they could, and rights from you to hold. Stand up now, stand up now. The gentry are all round. Stand up now, stand up now. The gentry are all round. Stand up now. The gentry are all round. On each side they are found. Their wisdom so profound, to cheat us of our ground. Stand up now, stand up now. The lawyers they can join. Stand up now, stand up now. The lawyers they can join. Stand up now. To arrest you they advise, such fury they devise. The devil in them lies, and hath blinded both their eyes. Stand up now, stand up now. The clergy they come in. Stand up now, stand up now. The clergy they come in. Stand up now. The clergy they come in and say it is a sin that we should now begin our freedom for to win. Stand up now, stand up now. To conquer them by love, come in now, come in now. To conquer them by love, come in now. To conquer them by love, as it does you behold, for he is King above. No power is like to love. Glory here, diggers all.
So we lived and worked on St. George's Hill for a year. But we called it George's Hill as we refused to recognise the conventional saints of the church. There were lots of different groups that formed and took over different lands up and down the country. But eventually, hostility to our efforts grew. In 1650, local landowners sent in armed men to attack our community. We were beaten, attacked, they even set fire to our communal houses. The government did nothing. So my vision was short-lived. The monarchy was restored. But I hope that the legacy and words of my time have remained. Sowed the seeds for future generations, so to speak.
And more people over the years have voiced similar sorrows, so please do welcome Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. So, enclosure, which sort of peaked in the 18th century, changed our country not just socially and economically, but physically in the shapes of the fields, hedgerows and paths, and huge change to biodiversity, loss to access of land and so on. And the great poet of this transformation was, of course, John Clare, who witnessed the enclosure of much of the countryside in his native Northamptonshire and the sort of loss of a whole way of life that came with it. So I'm going to read you a little bit of poetry. This is from a Clare poem called The Moors. Now this sweet vision of my boyish hours, free as spring clouds and wild as summer flowers, is faded all. A hope that blossomed free and hath been once, no more shall ever be. Enclosure came and trampled on the grave of labour's rights, and left the poor a slave. And memory's pride, ere wont to wealth did bow, is both the shadow and the substance now. So Clare, as it happened, also played the fiddle and collected folk music, and this is one of his tunes. It's called Persian Ricardo.
occupation and enclosure. Acts of claiming ground. One for the people and one from them. So on the one, there are themes that run through our histories. On the one hand, what was once held freely and in common, becoming privatised, fenced off, monetised and forbidden. And not just farmland, but public services, personal data, urban spaces. And on the other, you've got the diggers, the women of Greenham Common, and the tents around St Paul's Cathedral. History too can be enclosed. So many official histories cut us off from our past, reducing it to a barren stage for kings, battles, and eminent men. One example, look at the version of history that would-be UK citizens have to learn. So perhaps you could argue that with this performance, we're doing the opposite. We are occupying history. So someone at one of our previous tea parties that we actually had at Queen Mary's, someone actually said that a baby's cry is their first form of protest, which I found very interesting. And it's everyday people that we found during those talks that we were having with people at Queen Mary's, is that we all have sort of kind of history. People like you, all of us have our own history. And you've shown us through different ways how you've had your hand in history, how you've managed to be a part of history, just have your point in history where you have actually just had an experience, a story of activism and bravery, and we want to share some of them with you now. So we had some hand.
We're not going to be able to do all, but we'll pick a few.
So I've got someone here who works in the NHS and is frustrated with the system, but also understands it from the inside, passionate about rights for disabled people. We'll pick up on language people use, like retard and disabled toilet and language like that.
Cool. So this is Middle East conflict, bringing together European and Middle Eastern activists and artists, awareness of daily struggle, violence and complexity of life, and then some other points here. The West Bank, living in areas of conflict, perseverance, inspiring and disheartening, close friendships and tactics to make you feel small.
Okay, someone here said they supported the teachers' strike as a student and supported the teachers, and in doing so created a study group with other students to learn collectively from each other about the strike that was happening. And this was a kind of a new way of learning.
I've got something about the destruction of communities and echoes of the miners' strike.
Miners' strike here as well, fundraising and political fight, the underground club scene in the 90s, pop-up protests, restrictions for ravers and protesters, reclaiming the streets, and a devised piece called The Ashes, about the Blitz, I think, yes. And
on the one hand, I have attending women's marches, volunteering with refugees, and on the other hand, it says Brexit and then something I can't read, but I think it's a rude word. Anyway,
so all these will go in the archival section of the Mobile Incitement unit. So
and these have all come from people who were here with us for the tea party before the performance. So thank you very much, guys. All your stories that we're going to take with us to the places that we go on.
Excellent. I mean, Winston Lee, you must be so proud.
It truly warms my heart to see everyone standing up for the common folk.
Right, now over to Dan Cox, another member of the Black Smock Band, and he's going to be giving us some more insightful.
Really low microphone.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a short star.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out.
Okay, good. Maybe I'll just go back there. No, you can hear me, can't you? This is all fine. Everything's fine. Good. So, as English society moved from the old medieval system where people had rights to the land in return for military service for their local lords, to a system where landowners controlled all of their land directly and hired labourers to work it for them, the people became more and more reliant on wages and less on their ability to work the land. As their freedom increased, their poverty increased with it. When the Black Death killed half the population, the workers were able to demand higher wages and began to move up in society as free people. But the nobility tried to stop them with laws and with taxes, and the peasants revolted. Over the next few hundred years, the people slowly lost rights to the land that had been theirs to farm as the fields were enclosed. With the Industrial Revolution, the people were forced to move to the cities, and they left the land behind entirely. They were now completely reliant on wages and were powerless against harsh conditions, wages that could be lowered at whim, and unemployment, which for the first time began to become a serious problem. So the people began to organise, to fight for better wages, more secure employment and better conditions. They began to form unions. In 1833, George Lovelace and his friends formed the Friendly Society of Agricultural Labourers at Tolpuddle in Dorset. They were arrested and convicted of swearing false oaths and transported to Australia. Such was the outcry against their convictions that the men were later pardoned and unions began to gain acceptance.
Labour. Okay, no, this is too high. Anyway. Labour is the poor man's property, from which all protection is withheld. Has not then the working man as much right to preserve and protect his labour as the rich man has his capital? But I am told that the working man ought to remain still, and let their cause work its way, that God in his good time will bring it about for him. However, this is not my creed. Let every working man come forward, from east to west, from north to south, unite firmly but peaceably together as the heart of one man. Let them to be determined to have a voice in and form a part of the British nation. Then no longer would the interest of the millions be sacrificed for the gain of a few, but the blessings resulting from such a change would be felt by us, our posterity, even to generations yet unborn.
So you're George Lovelace as well now?
I've had lots of time to work on mine.
Lovely, thank you very much. We're going to do a song from the 1870s, which gives us a bit more of a window into the relationship between the people and their masters. Says my master to me, is it true what I'm told? Your name on the books of the unions enrolled. I can never allow that a workman of mine with wicked disturbers of the peace should combine. I give you fair warning, mind what you're about. I shall put my foot on it and trample it out. Which side your bread's buttered, I'm sure you can see. So decide now at once for the union or me. Says I to my master, it's perfectly true that I'm in the union and I'll stick to it too. And if between union and you I must choose, I've plenty to win and I've little to lose. For 20 years mostly my bread has been dry, so to butter it now I shall certainly try. And though I respect you, remember I'm free. No master in England shall trample on me.
So also close to here, just down the road, where was it? In Bow. Was
Stratford out of Bow back in the cities.
So the women and girls of the Bryant and May factory suffered poor working conditions, low pay, 14-hour days, and white phosphorus was used in the making of the matches, which caused the girls to have yellow faces, loss of hair, and these like pussy, fossy jaws. There was a social activist called Annie Besant who became involved in the situation, and she published quite a few articles exposing what was happening. This led to 1,400 girls striking and a national call for boycott. The girls formed a union, and then the factory owners conceded. And in my Mobile Incitement unit, I've got a quote from Annie Besant from her article published in the Link newspaper in 1888 called White Slavery. Born in slums, driven to work while still children, undersized because underfed, oppressed because helpless, flung aside as soon as worked out. Who cares if they die or go on the streets, provided only that the Bryant and May shareholders get their 23%, and Mr. Theodore Bryant can erect statues and buy parks? Oh, if we had but a people's Dante, to make a special circle in the inferno for those who live on this misery, and suck wealth out of the starvation of helpless girls. So this campaign gained national publicity, and newspapers from all kinds of political persuasions weighed in on the situation. From The Times in June 1888.
The pity is that the match girls have not been suffered in their own cause, but have been egged on to strike by irresponsible advisers.
In contrast, William Stead from the Pall Mall Gazette in July 1888 said,
"The story is full of hope for the future, illustrating as it does the immense power that lies in mere publicity."
I just want to thank you again, Ms. Vincently, for coming, because this afternoon I've just been thinking there is nowhere better to actually do a rally than in the East End. You've got the Poplar Rates Rebellion, that was in 1921, protesting against the property taxes as poor boroughs like Poplar had to charge high rates. There was also, in Cable Street, there was a riot in 1936. That's where there was a clash that has become known as the most popular anti-fascist victory on British soil. There was the anti-racism protests, which would run through the streets after the murder of Alta Bali. Alta Bali Day was actually a few days ago, where print workers created the Wapping Dispute in 1986. You got where women of the East End are creating their own honorary museum as protest against the Jack the Ripper Museum. And we held our tea party at Queen Mary University in between their strikes. So the East End, I would say, is a place that is still a continuous site for protests. Actually, out of curiosity, who's actually from the East End? Just raise your hand. Anyone from the East End? Yeah? Got a few people. Where's everyone from? You got any South? I'm sorry. Yeah, South. Hey, South. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Do you love your local area? I mean, even if you're not from the East End, do you love the East End? Yeah, absolutely. More important, who's been to a demonstration? Just hands up. Awesome. Who thinks that demonstrations are effective? Who is optimistic about the state of the world? Just have to raise your hand if you're optimistic about the state of the world at the moment. Yeah? Who thinks that change is possible, though? Who thinks that change is possible? And we did have, obviously, an election a few days ago, Thursday. Was it Thursday? Yeah. Hands up if you actually voted. Don't have to tell me who you voted for. Well, and do you think that that will actually make any difference? Hands up if you think that who you vote for will make a difference. Yeah? Lovely. Well, just speaking of voting, the Chartists had a campaign, and they had a campaign to allow the working class men to vote. And they failed to. The same story we've heard 1,000 times before. Humiliation, despair, you take up the struggle, you risk your life and lose, only to be proved right years later. and you've given up, or you've gone to prison, or you've died.
I mean, I'm still waiting. The land still isn't under common ownership, and the few common lands that there are slowly being enclosed, one by one.
The law locks up the man or woman who steals the goose from off the common, but leaves the greater villain loose, who steals the common from the goose. This is the Chartist poster, actually. This is a Chartist demonstration poster.
To the working men of London. Fellow men, the press having misrepresented and vilified us and our intentions, the demonstration committee therefore consider it to be their duty to state that the grievances of us, the working classes, are deep and our demands just. We and our families are pining in misery, want and starvation. We demand a fair day's wages for a fair day's work. We are the slaves of capital. We demand protection to our labour. We are political serfs. We demand to be free. We therefore invite all well-disposed to join our peaceful procession on Monday next, April 10th, as it is for the good of all that we seek to remove the evils under which we groan. East Division on Stepney Green at 8 o'clock, City and Finsbury Division on Clerkenwell Green at 9 o'clock, West Division in Russell Square at 9 o'clock, and the South Division in Peckham Fields at 9 o'clock, and proceed from thence to Kennington Common.
Thank you. Don't resist. Listen to the Chartists. Don't resist. Hear what basic rights the opposite sex hadn't received yet. Listen to the suffragettes. There was Emily Davison, who marched fearless through the darkness. Her spirit and fierce commitment to the cause of human progress. For the cause, we break away from the dominant iambic rhythm to use our voices that send us to prison. Having the right to vote without having to laugh at an insensitive anecdote. We're visionaries. It's the cause. She made an impact way before the king's horse's hooves caused her to perish. For the cause, we wish that she didn't have to bleed to be freed from the restrictions of the society she's in.
See, they were here too. The East London Federation of the Suffragettes. They had their own branches in Bow, Poplar and Stepney. Led by Sylvia Pankhurst. Radical, democratic. A focus on collective workers' action. Just beyond that door, every street sings with past struggles.
To draw a line, I'd say, from this moment now, draw a line to Boadicea. Draw it to Boadicea and her refusal to submit to the Roman yoke. Draw it to Ned Ludd smashing 2 stocking frames in a fit of rage, and those who came after, whose rage was considered and deliberate. Draw a line to a moment in time, to the front of St. Paul's, and to the night of the January 1996. A factory in Warton in Lancashire where 4 women are smashing up a hawk jet with hammers. Draw it to the Chartist meeting in the park or up the road to demand the extension of suffrage. Draw it to Wat Tyler and the Peasants' Revolt. Draw it to St. Mary's Church in Putney in 1647, where for the only time in history, a standing army debated its own policy, its own future, officers and commoners alike. Where Colonel Rainsborough said, "For I think that the poor is he that is in England hath a life to live, as the great is he." Draw it to those who stood against the fear that an equal stake in society would lead to the commons demanding true equality before law and before God, and the realization that this could only exist with an end to the tyranny of property and the dominion of one over another meant it had to be stored a good few hundred years before that threat could be negated. Draw a line to Oxford Street where the suffragettes are smashing shop windows with stones again and again. Draw it to here with the wake of this anti-Norman insurrection. Draw it to yourself here and now, and weave from it another history. One that lets you live in a world that's better than the one that has been handed to you.
100 years, 1,000 years, we're marching on the road. The going isn't easy yet, we've got a heavy load. Oh, we've got a heavy load. The way is blind with blood and sweat, and death sings in our ears. But time is marching on our side, we will defeat the years. Oh, we will defeat the years.
You can join in.
Men of bone or shrunken shank, our only treasure dead. Women who carry at their breast heirs to the hungry earth. Oh, heirs to the hungry earth. March with one voice, we march, we rest, and march again upon the years. Sons of our sons are listening to hear the Chartist cheers. Oh, to hear the Chartist cheers.
A short and partial history of radical resistance, part 23.
The oar is waiting in the turns, the snow's up on the fell. Canny folk are sleeping, yet the lad is ready to sail. Come, my little washer lad, come, let's away. It's round down to Savoury for 4p a day. It's early in the morning and we rise at 5 o'clock, and the little slaves come to the door to knock, knock, knock. Come, my little washer lad, come, let's away. It's very hard to work for 4p a day. My father was a miner and he lived down in the town. 'Twas hard work and poverty that always kept him down. He aimed for me to go to school, but brass he couldn't pay, so I had to go to the washing rake for 4p a day. My mother rises from her bed with tears on her cheeks, puts my wallet on my shoulders, which has to last a week. It often breaks a great big heart when she owns to me to say, I never thought that would stuff worth for 4p a day. 4p a day, my lad, and very hard the work, and never a pleasant look from a scruffy looking bird. His conscience it may fail, and his heart it may give way, and he'll raise us our wages to 9p a day.
Poverty is not caused by men and women getting married. It is not caused by machinery. It is not caused by drink or laziness. And it is not caused by overpopulation.
This is Frank Owen.
It is caused by private monopoly.
He's not real. Not like me.
That is the present system. They have monopolized everything that could possibly be monopolized. They have got the earth, the minerals in the earth, and the streams that water the earth.
He's a fictional character in Robert Tressel's novel, The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropist.
The only reason why they have not monopolized the daylight and the air is that it is not possible to do it.
See, he's a worker in the building trade and a committed socialist.
If it were possible to construct huge gasometers and to draw within them and compress within the whole of the atmosphere, it would have been done a long time ago. And we would be compelled to work for them to earn money to buy air to breathe.
See, it's kind of cheating to talk about him as though this is history. I mean, everything's a lot easier in fiction. But it was written.
And if that seemingly impossible thing was to happen tomorrow,
Just like songs are written.
you would see thousands of people dying for want of air. As even now, people are dying for the want of the other necessities of life.
At a particular moment in time. These words sum up a moment in history. Someone, well in this case, a guy called Robert Trestle.
You would see people going about gasping for breath and telling each other that the likes of them could not expect to have air to breathe unless they had the money to pay for it.
Wrote it down. See, that happened. Nobody actually ever said these words.
Most of you here, for instance, would think and say so. Even as you think at present that it's right for so few people to own the earth, the minerals and the water, which are just as necessary as is the air.
But they're being said now.
In exactly the same spirit, you now say, it's their land, it's their water, it's their coal, it's their iron. And so you would say, it's their air. These are their gasometers. And what right do the likes of us to expect them to allow us to breathe for nothing? So has any of this radical resistance actually accomplished anything?
Well, it's a good question, isn't it? How come we're not living in some kind of utopia yet? All these revolting peasants and diggers, these Chartists and suffragettes, they were all steps along the way to all of humanity coming together and creating a fair, free and equitable society for everyone, right? I mean, even here now in 2018, have we achieved everything that these revolutionaries could have dreamed of? And if not, when are we going to? But we have to remember the generations that have come before us. And we have to remember the most recent generations. We have to remember the generation who lived through the 1970s. The generation that remembers the power cuts and the rubbish, the dead even, piling up in the streets. The generation that remembers the 3-day week and the winter of discontent. The generation that remembers how the unions brought this country to its knees. This is a generation that lost any faith they had in the left. This is a generation that voted for Mrs. Thatcher. This is the generation that then voted for Tony Blair. This is the generation that lived through the miners' strike. This is the generation who brought nearly 1 million people onto the streets to protest a war, 1 million people who were ignored. Where is the great narrative of hope for this generation? And now we see again across Europe the rise of the far right. And what do we do now about the newspapers that support them? What do we do about Rupert Murdoch? What do we do about Donald Trump and his fake news? And even here now, today, are we just standing here preaching to the converted? So yeah, maybe all these years of resistance have been for nothing.
No, but look, I'm not saying that it was all a waste of time. Actually, in the grand scheme of things, maybe it all was a waste of time.
Was it? I mean, I ended up becoming an estate steward for an aristocrat. I was only working for her for a year, and then she accused me of mismanaging her property. I lived to see the restoration of monarchy. I kept writing, though. I kept my dream for radical equality for all men.
Oh, Joan Winsterley, where is your heaven on earth? Is St. George's Hill where you dug and you planted the land a common treasury for all? Or is it an exclusive and incredibly expensive gated community
Spoiler, it is an exclusive and incredibly expensive gated community. Seriously, I mean, look it up on Rightmove.
Oh, Jared Winstanley, that which you have planted has been torn up, and in its place, a luxury mansion set amongst the hills. Guide price? £12,500,000. And so I guess you can say that in the long term, and also in the short term, that it didn't all go so well. That this history, with a few exceptions, is a history filled with failures and losses, of martyrdoms and defeats and so on. And you know, like some might say, or like your mum might say,
Seriously, what are you doing? Surely, this is all just going to make you really depressed. Don't have heroes. Well, if you have to have heroes, then maybe try and make them the ones that win. And maybe the fact that all of this ends in failure, martyrdom, heads on poles on London Bridge, massacres, defeat, etc. and so on, is a sign that perhaps they were on the wrong side of history. You can't wave your ideals at the tide and hope that the tide won't wash you away. These stories don't end well.
and you're like, for God's sake, Mum, who asked you? and wait a second, Mum, hear me here. That perhaps some seeds take a long time to grow, like 1,000 years or so.
And a failure written in song is also, if you really think about it, a victory for as long as there is breath to sing it. Perhaps these stories aren't finished yet, so we don't yet know how well they end. Perhaps the dead line up behind us. You know? Point the way sometimes. Hold our hands sometimes. Nudge us forward sometimes. You know?
And your mum is like, well, and you know you've kind of won the argument.
When we come to those strange grey lands, what we tell the waiting ghosts, that we've dug over the brittle bones, turn their victories to empty ghosts. That the causes they gave their lives for were sold for silver and gold. The future they placed their hopes in, left their visions to grow cold. What do we tell the ghosts at the fading of the day? What do we tell the ghosts when we threw it all away? thoughts of those not yet born join us in their turn. From the floods and the refugee camps and the world we left to burn, when they too join us in their turn, follow us to these strange grey lands. What do we say to those waiting ghosts as they show their empty hands? What do we tell the ghosts at the fading of the day? What do we tell the ghosts though we threw it all away?
There are many parts of my family's history that I don't know about yet. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's just my nan. She's 88 years old, and I think that without my own dad and his brothers doing her paperwork for her, she wouldn't actually be as comfortable as she is now. But then it makes me think, my nan came here and she did a lot. She took care of many children. She did a lot for families. And it just, I can't forget my responsibilities that I have right now. Our responsibility to be proactive. Because I know that all of our roots are buried, maybe buried in different soil, and we haven't all grown in the same way, but we have come a heck of a long way in terms of our willingness to help each other, to grow, and to progress. To know that we can't ignore history, but try to make something that's well-rounded and something that can technically draw our generations together. Because yes, I know we may be dealing with ideological conflicts that we never created, and yes, I know that all of our histories are not there for us to know about, so therefore we don't know it well enough. But we can't allow any sort of ignorance to stunt our perseverance. We can, I know that I can all the time afford to just dig a little bit deeper and make a lot more of what we have right now, I think. A short and partial history of radical resistance, part 47.
Of heart in these days is to find out where true freedom lies, that the Commonwealth of England might be established in peace. True Commonwealth freedom lies in the free enjoyment of the earth. True freedom lies where a man receives his nourishment and preservation, and that is in the use of the earth. That which true righteousness, in my judgment, calls community is this: to have the earth set free from all kingly bondage of lords of manors and oppressing landlords, which came in by conquest, as a thief takes a true man's purse upon the highway, being stronger than he.
Tea? Yeah? Yeah? What would you like? Sugar?
Black tea.
Black tea?
I'll have tea with milk.
The cracks are showing, but the jail was never whole. The grip is loosening, the guards were never in control. They steal our banners to make us think they've won. They've blocked our lights so long, we forgot there was a sun. But wherever you are, wherever you live, whatever it is you do, or what you have to give, find yourself a flaw in the grand facade. Oh, engineer a glitch in the great charade, 'cause the cracks are all joining and the daylight showing through. The builders can't keep up and there's something you can do. You can lend a friend a book or make the headline news. When you're told to do wrong, you can simply refuse. You can dedicate yourself to struggle or grow your own veg supply. You can tell a truthful story or expose a massive lie. But wherever you are, wherever you live, whatever it is you do, or what you have to give, find yourself a flaw in the great charade. Oh, engineer a glitch in the grand facade, 'cause the cracks are all joining and the daylight showing through. The builders can't keep up and there's something you can do. But wherever you are, wherever you live, whatever it is you do, or what you have to give, find yourself a flaw in the great charade. Oh, engineer a glitch in the grand facade, 'cause the cracks are all joining and the daylight showing through. The builders can't keep up and there's something you can do. Something you can do, my friend. There's always something you can do. Something you can do, my friend. There's always something you can do.
We gather here.
And here, I mean, have you seen behind these curtains?
we come together. Is it alright if I say we?
Yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone object?
No.
I mean, look outside.
So we try to make decisions on the basis of consensus. We who are hopeful, or we who are naive, or so we're told. But we who are hopeful, but we who often, let's be honest, are often fighting losing battles.
I mean, you've got the greenery, you've got the residential housing, you've got the massive corporate towers. I feel like this just symbolises like everything.
So look, we get together down the road from the Tesco Metro in hope
Or something.
in hope.
But we aren't all hopeful.
Not all the time. But we come here to plot, to plan, to debate. God, yes, to debate. And when we gather, the past is with us. Sometimes we sing. Some of us have lovely voices.
Here, on this earth, under this sky. Remember, the earth knows no nation. The sky knows no master. This land, which is Poplar,
Which was named after the black poplar trees that used to flourish around the area. We also got...
Oh, it's also from the Latin populus, meaning of the people,
But
which I feel is quite relevant.
Yeah. But originally known as the Manor of Poplar. And so on.
Which once was city,
Once was town,
once was hamlet,
once was field,
once was wilderness, where if you looked up at night you could see all the stars. And where now stands the Tesco Metro, once lovers met by starlight. Here.
which is England, which is Britain,
And so on.
which is Europe,
Well, sort of. And so on.
England, which once was many small kingdoms,
Which once was Albion. Land, which has been owned, bought and sold, lived on and in, fed and watered, choked and poisoned. We meet here, administered and governed, shared, given, taken, conquered and enclosed, to plot, to plan, to sing occasionally.
some of us have lovely voices. Here in song, song which is breath, which is gone in the moment of its utterance, which is in the wind and it disappears. Song which is always dying and so is life itself. Song which remembers, song which heals.
We gather here, in song. Song in which all the past lives. Song in which all past lives live. Here, in song, where the dead gather, cool like water, like an ocean.
The dead,
Uncountable.
the dead,
Who in number will never decrease.
the dead,
Mourned or unmourned.
the dead.
Those who have names and those whose names are forgotten. We sing.
In the breathless one,
We sing.
in whose breathless voice is written all the suffering and misery.
We sing.
The dead whose struggles were futile, except in song. We sing. Some of us have lovely voices.
Here.
You noble diggers all, stand up now, stand up now. You noble diggers all, stand up now. The wasteland to maintain, sing Cavaliers by name. Your digging dust disdain, and persons all defame. Stand up now, stand up now.
by the winners. But I say we do not yet know who the winners are. It is too early to tell. And I ask of you, regardless of who writes history, who sings history? It is sung by voices. And voices, being the property of women and of men, regardless of their station, are truly a part of the Commonwealth. See, a king's voice may crack and croak, a CEO may rasp and wheeze, but the lowest of us may find that an angel has lent to us a voice to tear down walls, to assail the highest, to raise up the common from their oppressed state, to provoke laughter and tears and sublime reflection and glorious action.
Oh, 'tis of an old farmer, I must bring him in. He steals our commons and thinks it no sin. He builds up his fences to hold all his sheep, and kicks us all off and to starve and to weep, singing honesty's all out of fashion.
You've got the words for this.
These are the rigs of the time, my boys. These are the rigs of the time. Ultras of a society, I must bring him in, for telling us we should be a she or a him, be sugar and spice or slugs and snails. Why can't we write our own fairy tales, singing honesty's all out of fashion? These are the rigs of the time, my boys. These are the rigs of the time. Ultras of an old stranger, I must bring him in. He let me believe his picture and thought he had a win. Behind the screen it would have seemed perfect for me. He tries to say why and was meant to be, singing honesty's all out of fashion. These are the rigs of the time, my boy. These are the rigs of the time. Ultras of an old soldier, I must bring in. He intimidates the people and he thinks it no sin. He says he's protecting, then knocks houses down. He laughs at the people and destroys their town, singing honesty's all out of fashion. These are the rigs of the time, my boy. These are the rigs of the time. Ultras of an old stranger, I must bring him in. He fooled me with his identity, but I didn't let him in. My phone didn't stop ringing, I had to ignore. My heart couldn't stop beating, he thought he had scored, singing honesty's all out of fashion. These are the rigs of the time, my boy. These are the rigs of the time. Ultras of a rich chap man, I must bring him in. He charged 90 and he thinks it no sin. Puts up a billboard where you want to be, but the plastic you're buying ends up in the sea, singing honesty's all out of fashion. These are the rigs of the time, my boy. These are the rigs of the time. Now the very best plan that I do declare is to sweep them all up in their own stinking air And when they get up, the bubble will burst, and the biggest rascal come tumbling down first, singing honesty's all out of fashion. These are the rigs of the time, my boy. Time, my boy. Time, my Time, my boy. These are the rigs of the time. Thank you. Now get up and dance.